Hello there, and welcome to the Crazed to Calm show. Oh, today we're taking on the topic of is stress taking over your life? How do we even know that, right? If you find yourself saying, I just can't catch a break, you feel like your head keep barely keeping your head above water. Maybe you feel like, oh my gosh, the hits just keep on coming. Why me? Why? What have I done wrong to deserve all of this, one after the other? You may be thinking some of these things. And if this sounds like you, please hang out with me for the next 20 to 30 minutes because I'm going to be talking about 6 ways that you may notice that this stress is impacting your life. You may already know some of them naturally, but I also want to be offering you some solutions, how to help you reduce that stress. Everything that I do as a health and transformation coach is about lightening the load that you are carrying. I want to take the stress off you. I want to invite more calm into your life in as many different ways as I can. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So if you can relate to this feeling, is stress taking over your life? Just drop a one in the comments. Let me know. Pop in, say hi. Let me know where you're coming in from if you're joining us live. Now, one of the things that I experienced was my stress and anxiety level after breast cancer treatment ended escalated massively. Massively. And hey, Susan, good to see you here. Susan saying, yeah, she relates to this totally, right? And for many of us, after breast cancer or other trauma, or maybe just in life generally, this is relatable to all of you. But we're told after breast cancer so often that it's normal to feel anxious or stressed. And we are rarely offered answers to that question other than here's another pill. And so I want you to know that there are other options. And I'm not knocking medication, and I'm not saying that this replaces your mental health professional. But I always think that there are multi angles that we can look at things. And the more touch points we have, the better off we are. I also think that we all have to kind of try things on, right? Is finding that perfect pair of jeans. We have to try things on and see what works for us, what fits for us, knowing that if it doesn't work for you, it's not your fault. Just like if the jeans don't fit, it's not your fault. Did you know that? If the jeans don't fit, it's not your fault. It's the way that the clothes are made. Go figure, right? How many times have we said, oh my gosh, they don't fit? It's the same here. When we're trying to find answers to how we are managing our stress, it's the same thing. Sometimes we have to try on some different solutions before we can figure out what really works for us. Now, as somebody that's been through a lot of stress and somebody that has researched a lot of ways that we can manage stress, but also things related to breast cancer. And there is a very strong link between high amounts of stress, chronic stress, not just this bad traffic on the road today, but chronic stress and breast cancer. And so this is a really, really important topic when we are looking to lower our risk, when we're looking to manage fear of recurrence in a better way, right? And just generally enjoy our life after going through such a tough diagnosis. And so let's dive in here. When you feel like the hits just keep coming and coming and coming, I liken that to waves on the shore, right? It's like the waves at the beach, they just keep coming and coming and coming. And I always say we can't stop the waves, but what we can do is learn how to surf. Now, I'm a lover of the water. I'm a scuba diver. Love being in the water. It's just like my happy place, right? And so for me, this analogy makes sense. If we can't stop the stress, what we can do is look at how we are dealing with it. And that's what this show ultimately is all about, right? How do we go from crazed to calm? How do we go from what we're experiencing so often in our day to day life? And I think stress has been normalized somewhat, right? It's just like we get so used to it sometimes that we don't even realize how stressed out we chronically are. And so I just want to kind of draw attention, like I said, to 6 key areas in your life where stress might be impacting it. And you may not even realize because it may have happened over time. Maybe it's a little bit, maybe it's a lot. We're going to do this without judgment. Okay, I'm going to invite you as I go through these to look at these areas of your life from a place of curiosity, from a place of observation versus judging yourself. Because judgment, let's be real, just adds on more stress, right? Just makes us feel worse than we already did. We don't want that. That's not the goal. That's not the intention. So before we dive in, a fun part of this show that I'm enjoying because I'm such a tea lover, but I hope that you are too, is that every episode I choose one of my chakra teas. Now, today, as I have a sip, we're talking about the solar plexus. Now, where is that? You might be saying, that's okay. Don't panic. I'm going to tell you. It is, and I can only go so far back here. It's below the sternum, which is your rib cage. So if you go to the bottom of your rib cage, you can feel it there, and all the way down to your navel. Now, why did I choose this tea for today? When I think about getting in touch with my body, when I think about what my body is telling me, because our body speaks our mind, then I kind of do a check-in and say, hey, if I'm talking about being stressed and I'm talking about being overloaded, and let me know if you relate to this, where do you feel it? Do you feel a bit of an upset stomach? Do you kind of feel anxiety in your tummy, in that area right there? Do you get stomach ache? Do you get stomach pains? Do you get upset, either going to the bathroom or nauseous? Does it affect the way that you eat? These are all very common things when we're feeling super stressed. And so I thought today the perfect tea would be the solar plexus tea. Now, this is all about digestion, like I said, but if we look at it from the chakra perspective, it's about ideas. It's about belief systems and the inner chatter, that mindset stuff. And I like to think that we've got 2 personalities up here. We've got negative Nancy, and I mean no harm to anybody called Nancy, but that's our negative voice, right? That's our limiting beliefs. That's our, you're not good enough. You should be able to handle this. Why aren't you doing better yet? What's wrong with you? That's negative Nancy, and she's very loud often for many of us, especially if we have gone through something and we're not quite back to where we hoped that we would be yet. She can also be very present if we've been a bit of a people pleaser in our life. If we focused our time and energy on taking care of others, very often negative Nancy will be quite loud. The other person who I like to invite in a lot more frequently, she's a lot more fun to hang out with, is positive Pamela. She's your biggest cheerleader. She's the one that's cheering you on. She's cheering you on from the sidelines, no matter what. And so as we're going through today and we're thinking about this, I want you to think about your voice, your inner beliefs, the inner chatter in your head, because that can add to the stress or it can take away from the stress. So what's going on up here is so relative to this topic. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go on through. And let me know in the chat, Who's more prominent in your head most of the time? Do NN for negative Nancy and PP for positive Pamela? Let me know. I'd love to know who's hanging out in your head for most of the time. So, a stressed out mindset where we're feeling like stress is taking over my life, like I can't catch a break. When is this going to end? Right? When am I gonna can I just have an easy week, please? Right? I found myself saying those things over time. I've certainly been hit by multiple major traumas back to back to back. And so this is part of our human experience. Okay, so know that there's nothing wrong with you if this is what you're feeling like. And there's nothing wrong with you if this is your experience after breast cancer. And very often, what happens is how we feel is dismissed by our doctors. And they tend to say things like, and I've experienced this personally, they tend to say things like, it's just side effects. You're in menopause. Or it's the medication that you're on. And all of those things may be a factor for sure. But what I know to be true is that I also know that how we cope with and manage the stress in our mind is a game changer. Even if we have side effects from breast cancer, from chemo, radiation, surgeries, even if we have side effects from medication, even if we are in menopause, there are still things that we can do. And we don't deserve to just have those thoughts and feelings dismissed by anybody. Okay. And so let's start talking about how this stressed out mindset can significantly impact various areas of your life. Number one, your emotional well-being, right? Persistent stress leads to more anxiety, more mood swings. You might be feeling sad, depressed, and it can be super hard to find just that baseline, right? That even keel that you might be looking for. You might feel like you're on a big roller coaster ride versus something that's just very gentle and calm. And that emotional well-being is something that you get to check into, right? And so when we're trying to find this emotional stability, first of all, and it's the same with all of these, I want you to know that you're never alone, right? You're never alone. You don't ever have to figure all of this out on your own. It's big. Kind of like the ocean and the waves. It's big. And so if you want to learn how to surf, are you going to go to surfing school or are you going to try and figure it out on your own? You've got options, right? So think about that. But our emotional well-being, this feeling of feeling lighter, happier, more like yourself again. It's hard when we're being hit by these waves of stress over and over and over. This is an area that you're probably already aware of, right? Right. Now, what about, and you may or may not realize this, but physical health. Now, this is something that for me, having worked in health and wellness for 20 plus years, this is something I've been highly aware of for many years now, most of that 20 years. Seeing how stress can affect your physical body. Now, not only does it just make you feel crummy, but it can weaken your immune system because of the effects of cortisol, your stress hormone in your body. It can, and because you've got a lowered immune system, then it increases your risk of other health issues, especially this time of year, right? Flu, pneumonia, colds, COVID, all of those things. If your immune system is compromised, which after breast cancer, many of us are, period, already, we want to make sure that we're managing our stress levels so that that immune system isn't compromised even more, right? So it also exacerbates other existing conditions. So, for instance, if you're experiencing aches and pains from your meds, which I know many of us do, then stress on top of that, stress is going to cause inflammation in your body. You're going to hear me talk a lot about inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of all disease. And so it makes sense to me that if we want to lower our risk of getting sick or getting sick again, we need to lower inflammation. And so knowing that stress is a major cause of inflammation, it's really important to know how we manage that. So our aches and pains that we so often feel, menopause, as estrogen levels are dropping, right? Hormone blocking medications, side effects from treatment. Aches and pains are a very normal side effect that we might experience. And so we want to make sure that we are managing stress and not letting that stress affect our physical health more than we need to. Does that make sense? How about number 3? Relationships. Okay. It's not just us that get affected by our stress levels. I invite you to think for a second how it feels in your household when you are happy and worry-free, ache-free. You're not worrying about, not waiting for the next other shoe to drop. How does it feel in the house? Is there a lightness? Is there an ease? Is there laughter between you and anybody else you're sharing the home with? Or are you communicating with friends and it just feels easy, fun, easygoing, happy-go-lucky, kind of like you're surfing, right? And feeling the wind in your hair and everything is great. But what happens to those relationships when you're stressed? Your body's feeling like this. You're on edge. You're flying off the handle. You're snapping at people for no apparent reason, just because sometimes. And I can remember times where I've even thought, I don't even know who I am anymore. And this was, for me, it was before I removed my breast implants. When I removed my breast implants, that element for me shifted because I had breast implant illness. So when we are stressed out, and nearest and dearest are going to get the brunt of that. And so it's not just affecting you, but it's affecting this ripple effect going out from you. We're more irritable. We're not as patient. We don't tend to communicate as clearly. Like we're just snapping at people, right? And we're certainly not feeling deep connections. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, a big part of why I chose to fight breast cancer, and I don't like that word, but I'm going to use it here today. It was for the people in my life because I wanted to be here, because I wanted to spend time with them. I can make more precious memories, go through more holidays. But when we're stressed, and especially if you're an introvert like me, we tend to withdraw. So you might be snapping one minute and withdrawing the next, but we're certainly not cultivating the kind of relationships that we wanted. And so think about that. When we think about managing stress, it's not just for us, because I know that for most of us, when we are feeling great, everybody that we touch feels great too. In fact, it was very, very interesting to me. I was at a doctor's office the other day having a doctor's appointment for some issues with my hip. Yes, due to the side effects of the medication that I'm on, the letrozole. And I'm in the waiting room and everybody's there and they're on their phone and everybody's distracted. And I just wanted to sit. And I just sat there. And it was a long wait. It was a long wait. I was actually there for well over 2 hours. And I just sat there, breathing, focusing on my breath, focusing on being calm. And a complete stranger walked past me and said, I don't know how you're doing this, but I would love to learn how to be as calm as you are right now. Complete stranger. But he could feel from my energy what was going on. And so when we're feeling that stressed, anxious energy, which happens, right? We get triggered, things like anxiety, anytime that's coming up, cancerversaries. I've got one next week. I'll be talking about that on next week's show. It is next Wednesday. Anytime we're waiting for test results, anything like that, when people say things that are well-meaning, but can really trigger quite a reaction in us. And also, I mean, just seeing somebody on TV getting diagnosed with breast cancer or going through it, these are all very, very, very common triggers in our daily life that we get to experience and learn how to stay calmer. Because that level of stress will add to all of these that I'm talking about. Drop a 2 in the chat if you experience that, if you experience any of those triggers, or by all means, let me know if you experience others. How else, number 4, how else does stress affect our life? Our work, right? Our productivity level, our ability to focus. Definitely, because we can have trouble concentrating, difficulty making decisions. You may notice that you procrastinate more and then you get frustrated and that negative Nancy comes in and she's like, come on, get on with it. You should be done with this by now. Hard to manage tasks efficiently. Things can be on your to-do list for a while. I see you, Susan. Thank you. Yes, it's absolutely true. And so if we can calm our mind and how we manage stress, it enhances our focus. Right? Brain fog, we're told, is a side effect going through treatment, menopause, medications. But nobody's talking about what we can do to calm our mind so that brain fog, and I'm not making any promises here, but through my own experience and my clients' experiences, I see that these things make a remarkable difference, more than you would imagine. But we're certainly not being told by our doctors. Number 5, self-care. One of my favorite topics if you've been in my circle for a while, right? How does stress affect your self-care? Well, think about this. When you're stressed out, are you more likely to put on your sneakers and go for a walk, or choose Netflix to watch Suits, which, by the way, if you have not watched it, it's a great show. Loving it. Second time I've watched it through. My husband and I are watching it right now. And you're going to grab some popcorn or ice cream or chocolate, and you're going to sit there. And then what's going to happen? You're going to beat yourself up. Nancy's going to come in again, really strong this time. Why didn't you do that? You know you need to be moving. You know you should be doing this. Why aren't you? Because the stress is so overwhelming, especially chronic stress that goes on and on and on and on, where the waves keep coming and we feel like we can barely keep our head above water. It's harder for us to make proper nutrition choices. It's harder for us to choose to exercise versus the couch and Netflix. It's harder for us to sleep. And also, we have to always remember where our mind goes, our energy flows. So when our mind is stressed out and spinning like a snow globe, our energy is being sucked dry. Now, what happens when we're calm? When we're calmer, It's much easier for us to maintain that healthier lifestyle and actually take care of ourselves. It's much easier for us to do the things that we know that we want to be doing because our mind is more settled. We don't feel as overwhelmed. We don't feel as frustrated. We don't feel as emotional. And we're not feeling as anxious. And so we're able to make clearer choices for ourselves. Makes sense, right? When we look at it. And so, again, what do I know about our loved ones? They want us taking care of ourselves, they want us here. And that means that we need to amp up our self care, but it's hard for us to do. I'm not going to say we can't or it's impossible, but it's more challenging. So, if we can learn to calm our mind, it's easier for us to start prioritizing those things. And number 6, our final one for today, and trust me, I could go on and on, but that's what this whole show is about. And you'll be discovering this over the coming months and years, right? With more Crazed to calm awareness of where you are and what you can do to shift. Number 6 is quality of life. It's a big one, right? I ask myself when I get stressed, when I get anxious, because it happens. It's just how quickly we can become aware of it and start to shift. Okay. So it's not that I have yet not learned how to stop it from happening. We can't stop the waves crashing against the shore. This is my belief. But we can learn how to surf. And I also know that to be true. That's how I've become the bounce back expert that I am, by learning to surf. So one of the questions that I ask myself when I'm stressed out and anxious is this the life that I want? Is this how I want to feel every day? Is this the life I fought for? And when I can answer no, and when you can answer no, then we get to start shifting and making different decisions and different choices. When we realize that there's an option. Now, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, I'm going to shift to calm. This is a practice. This is a process, one that I will be teaching you in my upcoming workshop, the Crazed to Calm workshop. Look next week for details. Details are coming next week, and you need to hop on it. But there's only going to be a few days where you're going to get the option to jump into that workshop. So it's knowing that we have options. We don't have to just stay stuck where we are. And you may not know the answer to how to get out of it. What you need to know is, do you want to stay there? Do you want to stay feeling like your quality of life has been diminished so much that you feel robbed of your life? That your daily activities are so limited? It's like, why? Because I know that when we're in that place, it's really hard then. It leads to a lot of depression often. And that's, again, it's something that is very common after breast cancer, very common after trauma, common after menopause. There's a big hormonal component to it. But when we look at this multifaceted approach and say, okay, what can I do in this picture to shift how I'm thinking? Because it's our thoughts that control everything else. Our thoughts control our action. Our thoughts control the results. But it starts with our thoughts. It starts with our mindset. And so that is something always that we get to change. It's exciting, right? It's exciting knowing that you don't just have to suck it up and wait until you feel better. There are things you can do. And so when we recognize the impact of stress in these areas, the first step is obviously asking, how do I manage this? Right? Do you need support from healthcare professionals, therapists, support groups, loved ones, or coaches to help you develop coping strategies and techniques that promote a calmer and more resilient mindset? That's exactly what I'm going to be helping you do in the Crazed to Calm workshop. I'm going to be giving you will leave with your unique Crazed to Calm roadmap. It will be different for every single person in the workshop. But these elements of self-care and stress management are vital components of your breast cancer journey and recovery, especially as feeling overwhelmed and not managing stress well is a big component of the Cancer Personality Checklist by Dr. W. Douglas Brody. So this is something that I really invite you to think about and think about, is this something that you want to shift in your life and learn how to go from crazed to calm, no matter what the circumstances? But I think we have to think, first of all, how much is this really impacting your life? Is it impacting your emotional well-being? Is it impacting your physical health? Is it impacting your relationships, your productivity? Is it impacting your ability to practice self-care? And is it impacting your overall quality of life? And if you said yes to one or more of those, this workshop is going to be for you. So make sure that you join me next week. You can always send me a message and say, hey, Karin, I want to be in that workshop, or drop a me below this video wherever you're watching it. Hit reply if you're getting it in your email and just let me know. But knowing that, and this is something that I have now practiced for well over 10 years, understanding that we don't have to keep doing what we've always done just because we've always done it. And a major trauma, the first time for me was my major car accident. For many of us, it's breast cancer or other trauma. It's the perfect time. Even though it may feel like you're adding something else on, I want you to know that you're actually going to take a whole lot off. You know how heavy that stress feels. You know how much it weighs you down. You know how much energy it sucks dry. You just don't know yet how the steps involved in going from crazed to calm. And so today, as we finish up, I'm always going to leave you with a tip of the week. This week, I'll invite you to ask yourself, what thoughts do you have? And which ones are you putting in charge? Think about negative Nancy and positive Pamela. Which one's in charge? Which one's driving the bus for you? Which one's ruling your life? Do you feel clarity, courage, and confidence? Or are you feeling negativity, numb, and nothingness? Like, what is this? Ask yourself. Start to be aware of your thoughts. Many of them are in our subconscious and they're on auto repeat and they're just there running in the background, like a tape deck that just keeps rewinding and playing again. It's funny to think of a tape deck, right? I'm dating myself here for sure. But that's the thing with our thoughts. And so often it's those inner beliefs that started in childhood always, where negative Nancy comes from. And she can get real loud sometimes. She was a very loud part of my life for decades and decades, but she isn't now. And that's how I know that she doesn't have to be for you either. Okay. So I hope that this was helpful today, and just recognizing, I want to help you shift the awareness around things that we're just thinking are normal, or even we've been told by our doctors are normal, and start to shift that awareness around, is that normal something you want, or something that you don't want? Because if you don't want that in your life, there's always a way to figure it out. You may not know the answer, but there's always a way. And that's how we learn to surf. Every wave is different, but we have to learn to go with the flow, to let go of what we can't control, to focus on what we can, and to learn some different skills. Okay? So don't forget, what thoughts do you have, and which ones are you putting in charge? Is negative Nancy here and really loud, or is it positive Pamela with a gentle hug and a nudge? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me here today. My name is Karin Del Maestro. I'm the host of the Crazed to Calm show. And you can find me, and also the show notes, the link to the solar plexus tea, everything that we've talked about today. You will find links over in the show notes on my blog, karendelmaestro.com/blog. And I hope to see you again soon, and have an incredible rest of your day and your week. And don't forget, what thoughts are you putting in charge? You're welcome, Susan. Have a great week. Bye for now.